Hello and welcome to Star Wars Grand Moff. I am the Grand Moff, and today we are ranking nearly every Star Wars film and Disney Plus series. If you like this sort of content, then make sure to hit that like and subscribe button and join our small Star Wars community. Let's get straight into it by saying all Star Wars is good Star Wars, but some is slightly better than others. I've got my tier lists on the side, starting at the bottom with Jar Jar, all the way up to This Is the Way. I do also want to say that I am a prequels fan. I grew up with them. That's the age I'm at. With that out of the way, let's get into it. So starting with episode 2, Attack of the Clones. I kind of like this episode. I thought it was a bit more meh. So I'm going to put it here to start with. Bear in mind, some of these might change as we go. There is a lot of poor dialogue in it, but we wouldn't have a lot of the memes if we didn't have this film. But out of the prequel trilogy, this is definitely the weakest. And the one I'd want to watch the least. It's sort of the in-between one. Next is episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. Definitely the best that Star Wars has to offer in terms of films. So when I say it's the best in terms of films, I'm talking about the original 6, the 3 prequels and the 3 originals. For me, episode 5 is the best. I always like it when the bad guys win for once, and Star Wars does that pretty well in a few of their films. Speaking of films where the bad guys win, we have episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Now, for me, I love this film as well. I think these two go hand in hand. It's very difficult to choose between the two. But I think episode 5 is objectively better from a storytelling perspective, whereas me personally, I love Revenge of the Sith because I grew up with it and it wasn't as dated as the 5th one. Next we have episode 1, The Phantom Menace. I actually quite like this. A lot of people really don't like this one. I kind of like it. I grew up with it. I think it's definitely better than the second one. Is it all the way up here? I'm going to put it in Don't Get Cocky Kid, but it's definitely somewhere here. We'll see as we go through. I might move them. There was nothing special about Revenge of the Sith, in my opinion, apart from Darth Maul giving us the double blades. But I think that's about it. I love Liam Neeson. Amazing, even though he's never coming back to Star Wars. Next, we have The Clone Wars. Oh my god, that defeats them by far. A lot of people say this is a children's show. A lot of people say there's too much in it. If you ever get all the way through The Clone Wars, it is the best I've ever experienced of Star Wars. There is some filler in it. There's some childish bits in it. There's some bits I really dislike. But overall, it is the best showcase that Star Wars has to offer. Now, on this tier list, there isn't actually the Star Wars Clone Wars film or the old 2003, I think it was, other Clone Wars film. Both of them would be lower than the series for me. The actual new TCW film was pretty poor. The older one was much, much better. But since they're not on the list, I can't really rank them. Star Wars Resistance. I believe this is a children's show. I know you could say that about the Clone Wars, but the Clone Wars actually has adult content in it, whereas Resistance is just a Disney kids show. I think it says it in the description. I've never got around to watching it. Let me know in the comments below. I might be completely wrong. But I'm putting it in Jar Jar because I've never seen it. Maybe it'd be fairer to put it in I Hate Sand because I've never watched this. I don't know. I haven't heard good things about it, and no one's raved to me saying, oh my god, you have to watch this. So I don't feel like I'm missing out that much. Next, we have episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Oh, I think this one's really good as well. I really do. 5 and 6 are just back-to-backs. They're just more like part 1 and part 2 of a great story. I don't know if they're as good as these 3. I don't know. I'd much prefer episode 5. I'm going to put it here for now, but I definitely think it could go here. Let's see where we put other things, and then I might move things around. Next, we have Rogue One. Oh, Rogue One, it just goes to the beginning. It is the best Star Wars film we have had ever. I don't think any Star Wars film beats this. You can argue with me in the comments below, and I know there's a few people who don't like Rogue One, but for me, it is just by far the greatest film. I can do a detailed review in another video, but for now, just know that Rogue One is just so good. If you've never seen it, oh my god, you are missing out, seriously. Speaking of films, Solo, very, very opposite to Rogue One. It's definitely not going anywhere up. It's just whether it's... I think a lot of people hate Solo a lot more than I do. I thought it was fun to watch. As in, if you know nothing about Star Wars and you watched it as a solo film, if you like, then maybe it's something. But oh my god, it was bad. It was bad. Rogue One showed you how you could do a small Star Wars story in a good way, and then from that they thought they could get a spin-off into Solo, and they just messed it up. They really did. The story was just terrible. If you like Solo, great, but for me it's as bad as Anakin hates sand. Next is Star Wars Rebels, which I have to put here. Now, I love the Clone Wars, and I mean I really love the Clone Wars, and I think if you had to make arguments for which one's better out of the Clone Wars and Rebels, I think Clone Wars would win. It is longer. However, Star Wars Rebels will always have a special place in my heart. The first time I watched Star Wars Rebels, I completely disliked it, didn't want to watch it. I went back like half a year later, especially when the new seasons were coming out, rewatched it all, and I just fell in love with it. And since then, I've rewatched it maybe 9-10 times all the way through. It's just absolutely amazing. It's just a small group, a small family fighting against the Empire. And one of the favourite bits for me is when they build up all their ships and they build up such this group that even the filler episodes manage to link into the main story eventually when they get new ships or new allies to help them. So I absolutely love Star Wars Rebels. Bear in mind this tier list is not objectively what's better, it's what I personally feel is good. I think I'm going to have to come back to the Bad Batch. It's so difficult and I've got a lot of thoughts on the Bad Batch. Some episodes of the Bad Batch are some of the greatest that would be up here in This Is the Way. 100%. Even in season 2, there's 2 episodes I can think of straight away that are just, oh my god, they need to be in This Is the Way. But then you have some episodes that are just quite clearly in Jar Jar and just absolutely awful. Like, look at the most recent Bad Batch 2-part. It should have been a 1-parter and it's clearly padding and absolutely pointless. So some of the Bad Batch for me is 100% in Jar Jar, probably 70% of it. And then you got 20% that is just absolutely amazing. I'm going to have to compare it to other things. Phantom Menace is better. I even think Attack of the Clones is... I don't know. I'm gonna put it here. It's only ahead of Attack of the Clones because of those few episodes that are absolutely amazing. Like, absolutely phenomenal. But apart from that, it doesn't really reach the heights of anything else. And I wish it did. I wish it reached these. As you can tell, I love animated Star Wars. I think it's amazing. But it just doesn't reach it. Right, let's go into... I'm going to swap some of these around a bit so we can have a little bit more order to the sequels. I do not like the sequels. I really, really don't. I think they didn't have a plan for them, as they admitted in interviews. They didn't really know what they were doing. The directors felt like 2 toddlers fighting over toys in a sandpit, and they ended up changing the story from episode 7 to episode 8, and then episode 8 to episode 9, so that none of it made sense at all. The best one out of the 3 is definitely The Force Awakens, and I would say that's comparable to episode 1 for me. I would quite happily watch Force Awakens again. I feel like Force Awakens gave you a lot of hope for the future in terms of Star Wars, and after going to the cinema I thought, okay, it's okay, but actually the future of Star Wars looks quite bright. The story and the possibilities look quite good. As for the whole Starkiller base, another giant weapon, and it being a complete rip-off of episode 4, yeah, most probably it was, but I would say it's pretty okay. It's definitely not bad in my opinion, and bear in mind I don't really like the sequels, but I didn't think Force Awakens was that bad. As for the other ones, oh my goodness, I don't think I even need to really say very much. I think it explains it itself. Some people defend this, I've seen on YouTube, but unfortunately for me, episode 8 is by far, and I'm going to just swap them around quickly, the worst. Rian Johnson, oh my god, I hated you for so many years for ruining Star Wars. Your actions and your direction led to episode 9. So I blame episode 8 for the failure of episode 9, because they didn't really have a choice. J.J. Abrams didn't really have a choice with what he did. Episode 8, for me, was just so dull. And with Leia out of the ship, then Supermaning back in, I thought it was such a great way to honour Carrie Fisher, who recently died when this happened, to have her die in an honourable way, and to give the character an out. But then they didn't. She flew back in, and I was like, okay. But that was just one of the many problems with episode 8. Bear in mind, Rian Johnson has recently done Knives Out, which is absolutely amazing. Both the Knives Out have been astonishing, and I couldn't believe that he directed it. So maybe there's hope for him in the future, but not in Star Wars. Please, 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 never in Star Wars again. Episode 9, Palpatine returns. Somehow. It's really bad when you have to start a Star Wars film like that. It's just like almost like a joke. It was absolutely terrible. And I've realised I've got these two the wrong way around, haven't I? Just looking at the pictures. That's Force Awakened, and this is episode 9, I think. Because I can see Harrison Ford tiny. Sorry, these pictures are really tiny and pixelated, and it's very hard to see. And as you can tell, I don't really pay much stock by the sequels. But anyway, Force Awakens goes back in its rightful place, and episode 9 can go right down here. The problem with episode 9 is J.J. Abrams had a lot of problems that he had to rectify in one film. So he had to try and fit in a whole sequel in one film. And it didn't work. There was a lot of MacGuffin problems. Palpatine somehow returns. Palpatine being ridiculously powerful. Them getting the resources for all the ships. And then when all the ships around the universe came to support them, they were all just CGI copies of each other, just copy and pasted really quickly. Like, I saw the Ghost from Star Wars Rebels about 10, 20 times. And I'm like, really? Really? It ruined it for me, and it ruined the whole immersion of the final act, which is meant to be the best bit. Compare the final act of episode 9 to the final act of Rogue One, or the third act, when all the ships come in. When all the ships come in Rogue One, I am literally like goosebumps, heart beating. Even when I watch it today, I'm like, oh my god, it's going to kick off. It's like in Lord of the Rings when they do the Battle of Pelennor Fields and the Rohirrim come. It's like, oh my god, it's getting real. And even when I was younger, I even liked Narnia, and when they did the battle in Narnia, and when he says for Narnia and for Aslan, it's those goosebump moments you want. They tried to do that in episode 9, but it just comes across as meh. And riding horses. Horses on starships. Nah, I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm sorry. I try, but these two for me are just absolutely ridiculous. It's not even so much I dislike them. Like, I dislike Solo and what they did. I just think this is a joke. It's an absolute joke for me. But let me know in the comments below, what did you like about the sequels? Some stunning visuals, and some of the actors were really good, but apart from that, the story was so poor that I can't really support them. Anyway, tangent over. Now we're on to the original. Oh, A New Hope. Should I put... No, I'm joking. I'm not going to put it down there. It's definitely up there. It's definitely better than Phantom Menace and Force Awakened. It's funny how these are the three first ones, and they're sort of like in the middle. I don't know. I don't think it's better than Return of the Jedi. It's a great start, but I think some of the later films, especially the two after, definitely eclipse the fourth film. And I always find it funny in Star Wars when we say the fourth film when actually it's the first film. But anyway, let's move on. We have The Mandalorian. Wow, 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 wow. Give me your best wow, 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 wows in the comments below if you made it this far. The Mandalorian is outstanding. It's definitely going in This Is the Way. It's just where in This Is the Way can it go? Now, a lot more casual Star Wars fans have got into the franchise thanks to The Mandalorian. So I just want to say a big thank you to The Mandalorian. Because of you, so many new people are coming to Star Wars, which is great for the hobby, and it's great for everyone involved in Star Wars. For me personally, it doesn't reach the height of some of my favourite films, so I think I'm going to pop it here just for now. It's really difficult. I love The Mandalorian, but it doesn't reach the core of Star Wars like these four do, for me personally. However, in terms of a lot of people's lists, The Mandalorian would probably be the first thing. Just debating whether I prefer Revenge of the Sith to The Mandalorian. It's really difficult. I think I prefer The Revenge of the Sith only because I love the era that it's set in. The story is nowhere near as good as The Mandalorian. Some of the acting is just not the best thanks to George Lucas. Mandalorian is definitely, in a lot of respects, objectively better than some of these. But for me, personally, it's definitely in the top tier, but I love Revenge of the Sith. I love the whole storyline. I like the Palpatine becomes the Emperor and the Jedi's downfall. It's sad, and it's just such an amazing ending that you never got in storytelling before, that the bad guys actually win. And because of that, because of the era of the Empire, it spawns some of the greatest media that we have. Like, the best bits of the Clone Wars link to Episode 3. The best bit of Rebels and Rogue One links to the in-between bit between Episode 3 and Episode 4. So for me personally, I think Mandalorian sits quite pretty there. Okay, next we have Book of Boba Fett, which should be in the leagues of Mandalorian. Should be. I love the character of Boba Fett, as many people have, but they absolutely butchered him. I just don't understand what they were doing with Book of Boba Fett. Episode 4 and 5 are episodes of The Mandalorian, which are really good episodes, actually. Episode 4 and 5 can definitely go up in This Is the Way, but they are episodes of The Mandalorian. All because Disney wanted to sell toys. They made sure the Book of Boba Fett had 2 episodes that were Mandalorian precursors to Season 3, because they wanted Grogu back before. Kathleen Kennedy, person in charge of Disney Star Wars-esque, literally wanted Grogu back before Season 3, so they had to push it into Book of Boba Fett. But then again, Boba Fett was failing anyway without that. It wasn't just because they missed out on 2 episodes. It was set up to be something so amazing and just flopped so hard. They didn't really even know where they were going, what they were doing. And the whole character of Boba Fett for me was a bit in question, of how he so quickly turned from being cold-hearted bounty hunter to all of a sudden wanting to care for everyone and be a good guy. It was more like they were like, in the writing, they were like, we need to make Boba Fett a good guy. Okay, how do we do that? Well, let's just make him into a good guy. And it's like, it doesn't really work like that. You need to have that development. I would have much preferred Book of Boba Fett if we started off with that cold bounty hunter or something close, and then as the season went on, he starts to change. And you could have done that over even 2 seasons if you did the first season correctly. But I doubt there's ever going to be another Boba Fett again, because it flopped so hard. There's many videos on YouTube you can watch for the reasons why Boba Fett was terrible. The Cad Bane bit, oh my god, Cad Bane in live action, please. Please, if you're doing any sort of live action, look at the material from the animation and copy it. Please, please. They do this so poorly in so many regards. Look, we've got 2 other things coming up now. They did Cad Bane poorly. They did the Grand Inquisitor poorly. They did Colonel Yularen very poorly. Colonel Yularen is in Clone Wars correctly. He is in A New Hope correctly. He is in Rebels correctly. And what I mean by correctly is the actual character who looks like him and sounds like him. He has a very distinct British Colonel voice. He reminds me a bit of Colonel Mustard from Cluedo, or Clue, as Americans call it. He was the tight British colonel who is always the rules. And the guy that we got didn't look like him and didn't sound like him. And I was like, that's not him. That's not him when I was watching Andor. And then it was him. And I was like, what is going on? And when we were focusing on the ISB in Andor, I was like, yes, Colonel Yularen's going to be in it. Colonel Yularen's going to be in it. He's also in the Thrawn novels, which are some of my favourite Star Wars material ever. The canon Thrawn series. And Colonel Yularen's in it with him. In every appearance Colonel Yularen's in, they do him correctly. But in Andor, for some reason, they just don't. And I don't really understand why. Maybe let me know in the comments below. Other rant over. Anyway, that's where I'm putting Boba Fett. I think it is the worst that Star Wars has to offer. I hate Episode 8. I think, maybe not hate, otherwise it would go in the sand, but it's so terrible, Episode 8. But yeah, Boba Fett is even worse. Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now, this is controversial because a lot of people disliked this and a lot of people liked it. I saw very mixed feelings. I didn't really look online at what people thought of Obi-Wan Kenobi as I was watching it. And I quite liked it. I think it has problems. Definitely. It's not going to be up there. But I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. It is definitely better than all of the media below it. Is it better than Force Awakens? For me, I much prefer the subject matter compared to the Force Awakens, because unfortunately they tried to introduce a new world, basically, because we're in the future, and they failed. The only reason I like this maybe a bit more is the nostalgia. I don't think it's fair actually to put it in front of it. Personally, I think I prefer it over Force Awakens. I'd rather rewatch Kenobi than watch The Force Awakens, but objectively, my storyteller sort of brain, I think Force Awakens was a better story than Kenobi. Oh, maybe not. I quite liked Kenobi, but if you took Kenobi away, would it do anything to the story? In some ways, it might even contradict the story that it's in there. The whole thing with Leia was bad. There were some really good moments in Kenobi, but there were some really bad ones as well. Oh, some of the Bad Batch is better than Kenobi, but not... No, I'm going to leave it like that. I'm happy with that. Okay. Andor. I loved Andor. There was a few people online who said it wasn't all that, but a lot of people gave it glowing reviews as something refreshing and different. I think Andor has definitely got people who watch The Mandalorian into Star Wars a bit more. Is Andor slow? Oh my god, 100%. Sometimes watching Andor, and if you like a slow burn, you'll love it. But when I was watching it, I was like, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. You do get the payoffs in the end, and for that, I'm greatly appreciative. I love the ISB and seeing how the Empire works. For me, that is amazing. Seeing more about how citizens live with the oppression of the Empire, amazing content for me. There's a lot of morality issues in this, which I also love. There's a lot of political points in it that you can get across, which I also like. I like that sort of subject matter without it being in your face. It's actually in the sort of lore of Star Wars to have all of these issues, which I absolutely love. For me, the only reason it falls short is it is so slow. I love Mon Mothma as well, by the way, before I forget. She was great as well. I think all the casting of it was really good as well. Preliminary, going to put it just here, just to drop it down. It is definitely up there. It is definitely better than this tier. But I don't think it reaches the heights for me of A New Hope or Return of the Jedi, which is no mean feat. You're talking about the original Star Wars, and you're talking about some of the greatest media I think Star Wars has to offer. Oh, but I don't know if it should be up there in This Is the Way. I personally would rather watch Andor than the two films, but maybe because I've watched them so much more than I've seen Andor. I've only seen Andor twice through, so Return of the Jedi was good. No, I think Andor does deserve to be there. It is a really good Star Wars series, and to be honest, I am a person who prefers series to films. It's really shocking. It shows you how good Rogue One is that it's number one on my list when I prefer series to films. 100%. The last one is Tales of the Jedi. Now, the thing Tales of the Jedi did right is there is no filler. It is all to do with the subject matter of 3 episodes for Count Dooku, 3 episodes for Ahsoka. The problem with it is it goes against already established lore for Ahsoka, because I believe the novel Ahsoka, which is canon, goes against what is in Tales of the Jedi. They still use the name Ashla as her cover, but I believe it goes against it. I saw some news articles talking about how it went against it, but I loved it. I love the Count Dooku bits. The Count Dooku bits for me are definitely, and This Is the Way. The Ahsoka scene where she learns how to fight against the clones is definitely up there, but the other Ahsoka episodes fall short for me. Like Ahsoka being a child. Why do I need to see that? What does that really gain? The only bit I was looking forward to in that episode is Plo Koon coming to get her, and he never turned up. So that first episode for me was a bit like, why did you pick that as one of your episodes of Tales of the Jedi? It doesn't really tell us anything at all. It doesn't add to Ahsoka's story. If we took that away, how has it diminished Ahsoka? It doesn't. The 3 Count Dooku ones were amazing for me. I absolutely liked them, even though Yaddle is an absolute idiot, as I made a whole video on, but ignore that. Ahsoka's final one against the Inquisitor shows how much she's grown and how much she can take on like someone like an Inquisitor without even a lightsaber. But that episode for me as well was a bit meh. It does link to Ahsoka's story. It shows where she decided to go, I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight again. I'm not just going to wander around. I am going to fight. So I liked it for that reason. It did link to her overall narrative. I liked that Tales of the Jedi was short. It was well animated, and compared to other animated shows, it like Clone Wars or Rebels, it didn't have the filler. So it's definitely up there. I don't think it's better than A New Hope or Return of the Jedi, even though I really did enjoy it personally. I think that's about right. Let's just go through each of them again and make sure we're happy with where they are. Rogue One is 100% my favourite. It is just the best that Star Wars has to offer. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. Rebels is fine. Clone Wars is fine. The films are fine. Like I said, I prefer seasons to films, so you'll normally see the season should be ahead of some of the other films. The Mandalorian doesn't beat the story in Episode 3 or Episode 5 for me, but is absolutely amazing. Andor as well is absolutely amazing, but just not, it falls just a little bit short of Mandalorian for me. These two films are great. Tales of the Jedi for me is absolutely great. These three are all good, but a bit for me. The Bad Batch, please sort yourself out. Please, if you're writing The Bad Batch, Dave Filoni, please. The potential of The Bad Batch could be literally up here with Clone Wars and Rebels. For me personally, it's the content that I love. And it's so sad watching The Bad Batch week after week and just being disappointed. And then some weeks getting the best that The Bad Batch has to offer. And I'm like, oh my God, they're doing it. Only to go back to being disappointed again. Episode 2, unfortunately, is a bit meh. As I said, I've never watched Star Wars Resistance. Solo was bad, and then these three are just never watched them. They're the bottom of the dregs for me. They're just terrible. But there you have it. There's my list. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Let me know your rankings as well. Is there any that I've really badly misplaced in your opinion? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to have a discussion with you about it. And as always, if you like this sort of content, then make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. I have been the Grand Moff, and you may fire.
Our hearts beat to the city streets. We began to feel the fire. We rise like tall buildings as the chemicals, they take us higher.